and welcome to the journalism student that's come to watch. Number one, apologies for absence, we don't have any. Item 2, declarations. Actually, apologies for absence, I'm just going to quickly welcome Councillor Chris Finster, who was at his first council meeting. Number 2, declarations of interest. There are none. Okay, item 3, to approve the minutes on pages 4 to 10. Was there any issues or anything anyone needed to raise? Any? No, happy for me to sign them? Great, I'll sign them. Great. Okay, item 4, matters arising from the minutes of the previous meeting. Are there any matters arising? No? Okay, good. Item 5, written questions from the public. There are none. Item 6, written questions from councillors. There are none. Item 7, petitions. There are none. Oh, what's this? Okay. Sorry. Item 8, forward plan on pages 11 to 26. Any questions, any comments? Councillor Charles?
Thank you, Chair. Just on page 13, local development plan, I appreciate this is going to be debated at full council next week, but in light of 2 announcements today, first of all, the very positive announcement from the Community Secretary that we are one of 44 areas in England that will go through to the final funding round. I think we can all agree that is good for the garden town. The second issue, obviously, is the judicial review of Epping's local plan. I'd just be grateful, Graham, from a technical perspective, if you have any insights for members, I'd be most grateful on how that will impact the wider duty to cooperate across this corner of the east of England.
Graham's come in. Just be careful of what we're saying, because it is still going through the courts in that situation. That's all right.
Yes, Chair. Absolutely right. I'm actually no more wiser than the statement on the Epping Forest website.
Yeah. Worth a go. My next question, Chair, is on the, which I welcome, the strategic priorities development work for HTS. One of the questions I have on this, for this report that I understand is coming in June, is obviously the Conservatives put forward a motion for HTS to set up a subsidiary to build council houses. What are the council's thoughts on implementing something like that as part of this strategic work?
Go on, Mark.
As we said at the budget meeting back in February, the administration has been looking for quite a while now into opportunities for built some council housing. Indeed, my statement included several examples of where we're building council housing. But to answer Councillor Charles' question, is a report will be coming very shortly into future plans for building council housing.
Thanks. On page 15, this is just an area of interest of mine, Tony, the revision of the London Road North Enterprise Zone local development order. I'd just be grateful, Tony, if I'm still around. Obviously there are elections to come, but I think all Old Harlow councillors would just be interested to know a bit more detail about this, and given that it's a cross-party issue, I would hope that we would have sight of developments on this when it is the appropriate time.
Well, like your good self, we're all facing election in May, so we don't know who's going to be around this table after that particular one. But absolutely, there's always been a clear commitment in everything that we've been doing around regeneration and enterprise, is that we need to include local councillors as champions for those particular areas, and it's our ambition that that will happen this time. The officers are just refining the documents and the reports, but absolutely we will be sharing them in as open and transparent way as we possibly can.
Thanks. A lot of questions on the forward plan, I'm afraid, sorry. Page 16, not normally a hot topic, but there we are. On page 16, you've got the health and wellbeing strategy. You know, I take an area of interest in this because outside of politics, I focus on health and adult social care. One of the big issues at the moment, and the government has appointed a Minister for Loneliness, is the challenges around social isolation. The health consequences of such are that loneliness is equated to someone smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Those are the health consequences of that. I think as a local council, I think we have a moral responsibility to look at these sorts of issues, and I would just be grateful if the council took that into consideration when they're putting together this strategy. I think that should be a really important feature of it, given our ageing population in the town. The second point I would like to make on a positive note is I think we all welcome the fact that Princess Alexandra Hospital is out of special measures, and that is down to the hard work of all health and care professionals in this town. Every single councillor here, I am sure, is very pleased to see the performance of our local hospital, and I think that our hospital, the team that is there at the moment, is going to go on to bigger and better things. And of course we all are campaigning hard for a new Harlow hospital in this town, and that's at the forefront of our priorities, irrespective of political colour.
Absolutely, and we will be looking at the loneliness within that. I believe that's going to Healthy Wellbeing Board. Overview work group, sorry, before I know it's going to one of the boards and through that and at the moment. And absolutely, and welcome everything you said on Prince Alexandra. As I said, my statement yesterday, it's great news and fantastic, and we'll work together to try and hope that the government do initial assessment and approve this summer, so we can actually get some concrete plans and move forward in hospital. Sorry, what's the next comment?
Yeah, sorry, it's just on the comment that my colleagues made about loneliness and age. Statistically, there are more younger people who are lonely from school all the way up to single parents than actually elderly people. So I completely concur and support everything that you've actually said, but this is a wider, town-wide issue affecting all sectors of the community, not just the elderly section of the community.
So, any more questions? No? Good.
Okay, so that's the forward plan.
Great. That's noted, sorry. Item 9, there's been no recent decisions taken by the portfolio holders, leader or deputy, outside of the normal process under delegated powers since the last meeting of the Cabinet. Item 10, the Joint Finance and Performance Report, Quarter 3 for 2017/18,
So
on pages 26 to 48. Do we have a second? Oh, I'm seconding that. Okay.
Did you want to take a word?
Yes, thank you, Chair. With respect to the officers, there's been very good control of the service budgets being maintained with the actual underspend. The 333,000 is 0.5% of the gross general fund, so in a sense that speaks for itself in terms of the accuracy. The underspend, if people have actually dealt through the report of 941, there are two major items, both unexpected, that we were able to get, although there's a bit of a caveat with one of them that we think the government might take some of the money back, but that remains to be seen. So generally speaking, Chair, I'll answer obviously any questions or any points that are made, or I'm sure the other portfolio holders if it concerns their area.
Great. If we might come to you, microphone, sorry. Mike.
Sorry.
Thanks. Okay, Mike's mic. Two questions first. So, Councillor Charles.
Thank you, Chair. Page 30, the great challenge for everyone at the moment is GDPR, and I was just wondering from the Council's perspective, I'm wrestling with this with the organisation I lead in the charitable sector, but the requirements under GDPR, when you look at the checklist in terms of meeting legitimate interest, access requests, new rules around consent, data breaches, and some of the requirements there. If you're not, I appreciate you won't be able to answer in full because we'll be here all night on those key elements of GDPR, but I think it would be helpful to councillors if the council just set out a note in anticipation of GDPR coming into force in May, just reassuring councillors on what the authority is doing to meet those new requirements going forward, because they are very robust, as we all know.
More than happy to do that. In fact, we're actually thinking about doing some training for councillors on this very issue, because obviously it affects councillors as well. We've got a project plan, we've got timescales, we've got external help. I'm quite happy to do a note and look at training as well.
Great.
No, okay, comments? No, I think, oh, go on.
Did you have a question? Sorry.
Yeah.
Go on, Councillor
Go on.
Strachan, I'm sorry. I didn't see you there.
When we was looking at the budget a few months ago, there was a section in it that showed that we were using some of our reserves and other things to put into other councils, which we got a return on, if you recall. Obviously, after we've seen what's happened with Surrey and obviously Northampton there, are we still doing that by putting our reserves and trying to make money out of them? Or have we moved some of them across back in house?
The short answer is yes, but Simon will elaborate.
Yeah, we only make temporary short-term investments for minimum recommended periods advised by our Treasury Management advisors. We follow that policy, and although we have investments, they are only short-term and just purely used for investment purposes.
That's great, okay.
And there was no comments on that, was there? So if we're all happy to agree, item 10. Is everyone agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 11, the Housing Revenue Account Quarter 3 Finance Report on pages 49 to 56.
I'd move that, Chair.
And I second that, Chair.
On this particular issue, Chair, once again, financial control, in my belief, has been quite good by the officers. We currently have an overspend of 266,000, which is once again 0.5% within the housing revenue account budget. Other than that, I think once again I'll answer any questions, but if people actually want the details on the underspending, they're there in the report.
Okay, any questions? Councillor Carter.
Thank you, Chair. On page 50 on the first page, paragraph 6b, it says rental income from housing stock is projected to be £262,000 lower than estimated due to higher right to buy sales and the realigning of the 3-year phasing for Briars. Later on in the report, in the CapEx report, it actually says that by quarter 3 we've sold 50 houses out of a forecast 60. So we're possibly 5 houses ahead, the total income of which could only be about £25,000 in a full year. On inquiry, virtually all of that figure arises from the accelerated decanting of the Briars and very little to right to buy sale. So I have to say, I think it's misleading at best to describe rental income from housing stock is due to higher right to buy sales, because it has a very negligible effect on £262,000. And in the sort of febrile political atmosphere we operate these days, it could almost be described as fake news. There is a lot of work that goes into these reports, but I think we need to just be a bit more careful about what we say in public documents as to their accuracy. That's more of a comment than a question. Whilst I am commenting, it's a difficult issue between both the HRA and the capital programme as well. But I have to say it's very difficult at the moment actually managing the capital programme. I think it's probably one of the most complex reports I've seen, all both in terms of where spending has been delayed, we've got other priorities coming in. And aside from my opening comments, I think the management of the capital programme, housing capital programme, is very good and to be commended. Just don't lose track of it.
Does anyone else want to come in and
comments? Come move on to that. Councillor.
Chair, the selling of council houses now is quite despicable. It actually undermines housing policy. We used to have 20,000 odd houses, we now have 10, and our waiting list would not be in the state it was. People out there living in ex-council houses would not actually be charged £1,000 a month, they'd be charged about £400 a month if they were still council houses. Yeah. The exploitation of people that's gone on because of Thatcher's policy in the 80s is absolutely despicable. And the chickens are coming home to roost now in regards to, you may laugh, the housing situation is very serious. We've got 4,000 or 5,000 people on our waiting list. And if it wasn't for those sales, people coming from outside this town with no association whatsoever, people multi-occupation is an absolute disgrace, Chair, and all we get from the opposition is laughter. We've got a housing crisis which the Tories refuse to acknowledge and refuse to allow local authorities to go ahead with social housing.
Unbelievable.
And to actually, it might be unbelievable to you, but it's not unbelievable to people out there in terms of the housing crisis that we actually face. Thank you.
Sorry, Chair, if I may just come back on that. Perhaps Councillor Danvers would like to remind us how many council houses were built under the last Labour government.
Absolutely. No.
Okay, any more comments on that? Right. So, sorry, Councillor.
No, I mean, the councillor has made quite a serious allegation against council officers and councillors by saying this report is actually false news. I'd like you to expound
from the
on...
portfolio holder for housing. The report is from the portfolio holder from housing. It says at the top of the report.
You were referring to variance 6B when you were talking about that it was false news about because right to buy was put in front of realignment of a 3-year phasing of the Briars. I assume that's what you were referring to. If I'm wrong, I'll apologise, but that was my understanding, that you were claiming that officers of this council were providing false news.
So, Chairman, if I may clarify, the report is presented by the portfolio holder for resources and the portfolio holder for housing, so I assume that they are responsible and accountable for reports which are issued in their name. The issue about right to buy sales is we're only talking about a possible 5 additional properties in the first three quarters of this year, compared with whatever the figure is for the decanting in the Briars. In proportion to the £262,000, the difference of 5 right to buys is minimal and is not material.
Sorry, can I just come back to what's the falsehood? Because everything you've said is exactly what has been said in this. So are you giving falsehood, or are you just repeating falsehood? You can't make these comments without consequence, and you cannot say to public bodies, councillors and officers that you believe there is a falsehood without any justification or explanation. So I don't still understand what is false about the factual information contained in this report.
Madam Chair, if I may, the higher number of right to buy properties is 5 in the first 3 quarters of this year, with a total potential impact of around £15,000 out of a total of 262,000. 15,000 is not material and is not worthy of comment. The main issue is the accelerated decanting of the properties in the Briars. A lot of those have been emptied a lot earlier than anticipated.
But it's not false.
Okay, we're going to move on to this point. Councillor Wilkinson.
Eventually.
We'll vote on that then. Okay, so to agree, item 11, the housing revenue account, pages 49 to 56. Are we agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 12, the Capitals Programme Water Free Finance Report on pages 57 to 71.
So moved again, Chair.
Seconded, Chair.
Right. Was there any questions, Councillor Carter?
Sorry.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Dance. Do you want to say a few words to us? Sorry.
As far as this is concerned, Chair, the capital programme is there. The non-housing capital programme, which I'll speak to, I'm sure Mark might have comments about. We've actually done quite a number of things, but obviously it also involves the enterprise zone scheme. Some of the highlights that we've been able to achieve have been with regard to the Stowe, the Apprentice Place scheme, which has finally got underway, are two of the major items that we envisage.
I'm going to refrain from commenting on the Apprentice Place, given we've got motion nods in the House next week. Councillor Carter, you had some questions.
Thank you. Yes, it is a question I have given notice of. Concerns paragraph 27 on page 63 about the underspend on disability facilities grant. It has come up before, and the council is in discussion with county and I think possibly CLG over what we can use that to underspend on. I'm just wondering if there's been any developments.
First of all, apologies for Councillor Carter. I didn't reply to 10:49 this morning. I've been out yesterday. I don't know if you received my email.
Sorry, no, I've been busy there.
Oh, right. Well, effectively, the email says exactly as you've answered that our accountancy staff and my environmental health staff are both pursuing CLG because we've been here before. Extra money has been granted. There are conditions attached to how we may spend that, and that's not been clarified. So I'm afraid the diligent accountants in the finance department are not going to release that cash until they know we don't have to pay it back.
So just to clarify, negotiations are continuing?
Yes.
Lovely. Thank you, Mr. Mead. Thank you.
Was there any other questions?
Or comments on the report? Okay, great. So if we can do the vote on that item, so that's item 12, capital programmes, all agreed?
Agreed.
Lovely, okay. Moving on to item 13, the housing allocations policy, pages 72 to 75.
I formally chair, I'd like to speak first.
Yeah, of course.
Seconded.
And Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, I will be brief. I just want to basically outline the reason for this agenda item tonight, and it's not to have a new allocation policy. What happened over the last 6 months or so is we've taken a health check review of the allocations policy, looking whether it's still relevant, whether it's still transparent, whether it's still actually legal. So what we've done is made about 6 changes that have taken into account the legislation changes that we need to make sure the allocation policy is legally correct, and obviously to clarify some issues that people picked up on during this health check and desktop exercise. This has been to the Housing Standards Board to discuss with leaseholders and to discuss with council tenants, and was very well received at the Housing Standards Board with some very good input made at the Housing Standards Board. And I'd also like to pay tribute at the same time that actually this report we've had 1 or 2 changes made from suggestions from council tenants and council leaseholders, which I find very encouraging. Thank you very much.
Great, okay. Any questions on the report? Comments? Go on, Councillor Carter.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. You may have listened to an informal conversation before the start of the meeting, but unfortunately I couldn't make that Standards Board meeting. But I did hear reports back that, yes, it was a very positive review. It's a positive report, obviously very welcome, and it has been considered, and there were some helpful comments back from the other people at the Standards Board rather than me. Well done.
Good to hear positive conversation going on. Okay, so taking the vote on, if no more comments, no? Yeah, good. Okay, so item 13, housing allocation policies, page 72 to 75, we all agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. Okay, so item 14, you've got the referral A and B. I'm going to take them on block, if everyone's okay with that. Right, so it's item A in the appendix, which is the review of the Universal Credit in Harlow, and then item B on pages 76 to 106, which is review of sports in Harlow.
I move that we accept the recommendations, Chair.
I second, Chair.
Okay. Was there any questions on the items? Any comments? No? Good. Okay. If we can all agree, then the recommendations in the appendix and for item A and for B in referral pages 76 to 106. Are we all agreed?
Agreed.
Great. Okay. Moving on to item 15, the minutes of the panels and working groups. And these are for noting. So item A, minutes of the meeting of the Housing Standards Board on the 9th of January. Item B, the minutes of the Safety Committee on the 31st of January. And then item C, the minutes of the Shareholder Subcommittee on the 13th of January. Was there any comments or questions on any of those? Oh, sorry, Councillor Carter.
No, Joe, just to catch up on the pages. Yes, it's the minutes of the Shareholders Subcommittee, page 115. It says the... No, not that one. Sorry. Yes, sorry. It's on page 170, item 24, timetable for the updated business plan. John Phillips said there was a meeting between HTS and councils was being arranged, and more information will be provided at the next meeting. Just wondering if that meeting's taken place yet between HTS and councils.
Move your iPad away.
That's the answer.
iPad is the reception.
He says he doesn't know the answer. That was Semaphore.
Go on, Andrew.
There are many meetings that take place between HTS and the council, and that will be ongoing. We've got a particularly busy year ahead of us, and so
In relation to the updated business plan?
amongst other things. Yes.
Okay. Was there any other comments or questions?
Okay, so those, it says 3 sets of minutes for noting. Noted. Great, okay. So item 16, I've had no matters of urgent business raised with me. So I close the